So thank you, Alex, for introducing me. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Đặng Đức Chiến from IPSAT. So today I would like to present you about a case of the control system for cashew nut in Bình Phước. So this is one of the results of the project we did in Vietnam in Bình Phước from 2015 until 2017-18, and it is a 3-year project funded by AFD, and we partner with some organization in Vietnam like in CATRAT and CIRAT. So today I only focus on the control system, how we design the control system for geographical indication for cashew nut in Bình Phước. So to legalize the framework for control system, actually the provincial pupil committee of Bình Phước issues one decision. You can see on the screen that the decision 0265. So this is issued in 2018, and then in this decision there is a content article about the control system, and to detail the control system and the control plan. Then the BB cashew here mean the Bình Phước Cashew Nut Association of Nut. So in short, the BB Cashew, they issue a plan, a detailed plan to organize the control system. So for you to more visual on the control system, I show on the graph that the control system have two layers of system of control. The first one is done by BB cashew. So we call that the BB cashew control, and the second layer is the self control by user. So for the BB cashew control, actually they every time they go to control the system, the VI, they usually form a control team. So this control team composed of BB cashew staff, the professional staff, the Department of Science and Technology officer, the expert in VI or in IP, and the other user staff. So that's why we only put two layers of control. Normally in the very classical model, we have a tree, right? We have a self-control, internal control and external control. But actually, this model we found that in some geographical indication in Vietnam, it is really does not work very well. So we try to reorganize and to think about the other model that we can incorporate those kind of control into. So we come into conclusion that there is two only. The first one is for the self-control, and the second is the control by the association. So the officer, DOST officer here can be play roles as the external control. Normally it is not really independent, but we consider that we don't use any other external control, but we use the DOST officer join in the control team as the external control system. So there is the control by BB cashew, and the other one is self-control by user. Actually, we have two two main users. The first one is farmers who grows the cashew nut, and the other one is the processing company. So in this graph, I list some documents that those users need to be recorded and keep at their unit or their farm to be checked by the control team. So I will go in more detail. About the control content, actually they have 15 points that need to be checked or will be controlled by the system. There are five, you can say 5 categories of control. The first one is farming technique. In farming technique, we focus on control the seedling, the weeding, the disease, the pruning, and the harvesting and storaging. The second one is processing technique. The control point is the roasting methodology and the salt used for roasting. So there are only 2 points for control. The third category is the origin of inputs and products. So this is one of the most important because the VI is linked very much to the geographical area. So for our control the origin, we have 3 points. Like the first one is farming and processing geographical geographical area, the raw cashew nut origin, and the product. So the product here in Bình Phước, there are 2 types of products. The first one is cashew kernel and the salted cashew kernel. The fourth category is we control the product quality. The product quality here can be seen through the sensory characteristic, the physical characteristic, and the nutrition content. So this is the specification of the VI product. So it is very important to control these factors. And the last one, the last category is we control the use of the VI mark. So the VI mark here include the VI logo and the mark Bình Phước cashew nut or hạt điều Bình Phước in Vietnamese. So how the farming technique or processing technique can be controlled? The content I mentioned already in the last slide, and to check or to control the farming technique, the farmer have to record the one farming diary. So whenever they do or they do farming or they practice in farming, then they have to record in like a book, a diary. We call a diary. Like when we spray, when we grow, or when we weeding, when we cut the grass or any activities in the farm, they have to record in a diary, and this diary will be checked by the control team. So for control the processing techniques, actually it is quite it is not really touch. It's quite easy because each company they have their own processing techniques. So we don't really put the restrict control on the processing technique. But for the salt cashew nut, we only check the salt they use. The salt have used for roasting have to follow the TCVN 9639. And we also check some certification that the processing company they have, like the food safety certificate or the national standard conformity. So this is for the control of farming and processing technique. So for the control of origin, this is one of the most important one. Actually, we have a control of two types of product. The first one is cashew nut, and the other one is cashew kernel, or the salted cashew kernels. To check the origins, the farmer have to these document in their farm. The first one is farming diary, I mentioned already. The second one is transaction invoice. Transaction invoice here means when they sell cashew nut for like a trader or company, they have to have the invoice. You can see here. This invoice have information on the name, the address, the mobile phone, the product they sell, how much they sell to the trader, and who buys product from the farm. So all information will be recorded in a transaction invoice. Similarly, the farm also have to record the product selling diary. So list all the buyer of the farm, and they have to keep those information. And the farmer also have to keep the contract with the buyer. Buyer here can be a trader or can be a processing company. So farmer have to keep all the information. Similarly, for the cashew kernels, control of cashew kernels, this is primarily in the processing company. They have to keep a similar documents like the transaction invoice, the product buying diary, and the contract with farmer. So this information will be checked again with the farmer information. Like because they also have also have a transaction invoice and transaction invoice. So transaction invoice here and here will be similar, the same one. And the product buying diary, you can see on the screen the product buying diary and the product selling diary. So this is the document we design to check the origins. So we go to the purchasing company and we see the information and check against if the information is correct or not by compare the information between those company with the farmers. So to be tracked at the process company, the company have to compulsory to keep the records of processing profile for every processing lot. So when the company they buy cashew nut, they do processing, they have to keep all information for those lot, like the origins of the raw cashew nut, the lot number where they have to define the lot number, the processing volume, the starting and ending processing date, and the product they process. So the volume and the packaging, they have to record the information for the processing lot. So all information will be combined together for the control team go and check. So for the control of product quality, I mentioned before that we check we control the sensorial, the physical characteristic, and the nutrition content. This product quality can be checked by control team, by sensorial board or the DOST of Bình Phước. So anyone here can check or can have a responsibility to check the product quality. And the last one is to control of the VI marks. The VI mark here, I means that there is the logo, VI logo. You can see on the screen. So this is the Bình Phước Cashew Nut logo, VI logo, and you can see here on the label of the product. So we check if the logo is or the mark is properly used on the label or any others means like leaflet or letterhead or business card, envelope, booklet, anything that we regulate in the regulation. When we check again if they properly use. So actually, so far they have actually 5. I haven't updated here, but there is 5 companies that have been authorized use of VI in Bình Phước now. So there are 2 other in pending for our authorization. At the moment, there are 5 companies already authorized the use of VI. And the control frequency, so each company, the control team will go to check every quarter. And the control team will be formed by BP Cashew. And the budgets here in the beginning will be allocated by the provincial budget, provincial people committee. So the last slide I want to raise about this, there's still some issue for this model. The first one is the stakeholders still confused in recording documents because they start the just very beginning, so they don't know how to record information properly. The second one, there is still lack of human resource because actually the association is very weak in capacity. They don't have enough people to work for the association. So the human capacity is really weak. The third one is at the moment there is no self-funded control system. So the budget for activities, control activities, still from the people PBC, from the people committee, not from the association themselves. And the other one is the inefficiency capacity of sensorial bot. Actually, we train them, but the capacity is very low and weak. And the last one is the cross-checking between company is still limited. So that is some issue. I think that it is not really can be addressed in very short time, but we try to help them to day by day, one by one, to improve the system. So that is about the control system of cashew nut in Bình Phước. Thank you very much for your attention.
I first want to tell the Vietnamese people in the room that Chien, with other colleagues from CIRAD, has been preparing, based on the project that we did with AFD, of which that presentation is part of, a policy brief on geographical indication management. You can find it on the table there. Then I think control system is very important, and I think this was already reflected on during the first session for food safety. So it is very important that we really understand how these systems are actually set in practice. So thanks a lot for that. First, I wanted to have a number of questions on how were the control points decided? What were the criteria for deciding on the 15 control points? And who was involved in the decision, and how was the process organized? And in particular, yeah, we knew that the sensorial characteristics were very important because, by practice we know there is a difference between Binh Phuc cashew nut and more generally Vietnamese cashew nut and other cashew nut in the world. So, and the sensorial analysis is very much a way of approaching that. But then, how was it defined? That, and then the other set of questions is more generally. You've been mentioning that so far the control system is just a dual control system with not independent control, but self-control and internal control mixed with independent players such as DOST. So it means there is a lot of reliance on the value chain actors. So can you give more background on what is the mutual interest of the actors to actually enforce the controls? What is the role of the association in general? How is the geographical indication being promoted? And because for people to be serious with control, it has to be in their self-interest. So how is the self-interest of people being built in? What is the interest of the people in using the geographical indication? Does it make a difference already on the market? Do people expect it to make a difference? Etc. Yeah. Thank you, Chen.
So, thank you, Esther. Yeah, for the control system, the 15 points that to be controlled in the geographical indication, we have some variation. The first one is based on the research, the study of the specification of a product. So, what is the main factors that
Không phải đâu, cái đó nó
affect
tùy từng
most
hãng em nhé.
on the quality
Hỏi như thế nó
of
tùy từng hãng, em đừng hỏi thế rất là khó hiểu. Bản thân
like
bọn anh làm bên ngành lạnh bọn mình chẳng hiểu AHU gì đấy, nó tùy theo từng ấy. Tại vì bọn anh, nhưng mà vấn đề là em vẫn cần hỏi như thế nào thì trả lời, chứ bọn em hỏi về cái chi tiết chuyên ngành bọn em còn chẳng hiểu nó là cái gì thì hỏi.
The control point is based on the first one on the study, especially when we making the product specification, the description.
Ai là người tư vấn cho em như thế và ai là người bảo em như thế?
We have to understand
Em có
what
hiểu
is
gì
the
về hệ
main
thống điều hòa
factors that
không?
affect the most on the quality. So those
Đấy,
factors
nên
need
là
to be
đừng nên hỏi
controlled.
người ta theo kiểu đấy. Tại vì điều hòa là người ta lắp theo từng khu vực hệ thống điều hòa, nó không phải là như kiểu gió như em. Hiểu anh nói không? Người ta sẽ được tách ra từng khu vực, từng
The second one
chứ không phải là người ta lại nối theo kiểu hướng gió. Em nghĩ điều hòa là như nhau, điều hòa là ga đó là hệ thống tuần hoàn trong kín, khép kín. Em hiểu chưa? Chứ không phải là hệ thống ống gió của em mà đòi em làm.
Like you or some other expert in front and Sakaro also, the expert one on the VI control, who is expert in the France. So we also advise consume the expert in VI to have a list of control points that we think that important. The other one we consult the stakeholder in the value chain, like the farmers or the processing companies. They are the one who really understand very profoundly and widely in the whole value chain, and they are the people who understand that what is the factor that affect the final quality of the product. So those are the stakeholder, the people we consult to build a list of control points. The second question regarding to the control system. Actually, we have a classical model for the control. First one is self-control. Basically, internal control, internal here means usually by the association or the cooperative of user like the farmers or processing companies. And the external control here means the more independent the organization or institution that they stand apart or they not belong to the association or they are not the user. So we call the external control. But actually, in Vietnam, by studying a lot of geographical indication in Vietnam, we see that it seems that there is no effective control system for those VIs, especially the external control system, because normally if the external control system they have to like a fund a budget for operation, but in Vietnam normally the association capacity is quite weak. They don't have money to do those external control system. Like we studied in a case in a pepper in Cambodia. In Cambodia, they ran a international organization to certify or to do the external control. But in Vietnam, we haven't seen any case that have a lot of they have capacity, financial capacity to support for those kinds of institution. So actually, we have to find another way that is adaptive or relevant to the Vietnam case or Vietnam situation. So in you can see in the in the graph that we in the control team, we try to combine one staff from the Department of Science and Technology that can be considered as the external control, and the other members of the control team is the expert here can be expert in Hanoi or in others province, not need to be in Bình Phước, but the expert in DI, even from other province, can be invited to the control team because they have the minded or the extent knowledge or understanding about the DI control. So those experts can be invited to join in the control team. So that is the way we try to deal with the control system. So the new one is not classically the 3 layers, but only two. But in the control of the BB capsule, we try to involve the member that is quite independent, a little bit independent for control. And the other one we think that is new is we also try the members of other users like the other processing company. They also have authorization of use of the eyes. So in the control team, every time the control team go to check one company, the other members, the other company members also joins in the control team. So they can be cross-checked because they have very good knowledge in the operation of the processing company. So that is, if there is any like mistake or any fraudulent or something that or something cheat, they can very easily detect by those processing company. So that's why this is also one of the new thing we try to combine in the control system of Bình Phước DI, and those idea is proposed by their own companies, with their own processing company. They suggested that this company should be control, also be monitor each other. So that is one of the new thing we try to integrate in the control system. So is that all question? Sorry? In market, actually, because after the product we haven't follow much information from the companies, processing company, but as I know that there are 2 or 3 companies, they also use the VI logos on the product as saw you on the screen, and they actually develop very fast and very well because because of those use of VI logo, then they can sell the product is very good because they can have the logo on their label of products. Yes?
My question is continuing from Alex, the questions on the use of the GI mark. Because I get this, when you have the logo, you will have a premium price. How do you control the use of GI mark? Because in your PowerPoint presentation, you're controlling like the labeling, the content of the labeling, and also the use in the leaflet, letterhead, but not the control of the use for other businesses that might take advantages of using that GI mark.
Yeah, actually, in our design in the beginning, we try to use a stem, like a stick, a stem. We try to use. When the company they want to use the stem to stick on the label, then they have to report and register with the association. And then the association will go to the company to check all the documents and then provide the stamp for the company. In our design, we try to do like that to control the use of logo VIs and the stamp. But in fact, when the association they don't include those parts in the operation or in the control plan, because it's actually it's quite complicated at the beginning, because they really don't understand the whole system and how to control the origin of the input and the output, and how they connect between the output and the input. So it is at the moment it's quite difficult for them to carry out the control through the stamp on the product. So I think in the future maybe they need to develop more. They can we can give them the advice and how to the control the use of stamp on the product.
I was afraid that Chen was going to do part of my presentation when he started talking about Cambodia. Okay, so this is the outcome of research we did with an AFD-funded project, a regional project on geographical indications in Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And what we did is we studied more precisely how geographical indications are certified in the 4 countries. So I'm going to go very quickly on this just to make sure everybody's on board. These geographical indications that are signs used on products that have a specific origin and have qualities and a reputation that are linked to that origin. These GIs are protected through different agreements, and law could be either public or common private law. Many examples in the history of products that are geographical indications as far back as antiquity. Wine from Chios, marble from Carrare, Murano, glass, Roquefort. Well, that's not antiquity, but it's still old. Okay, so there's a strong link to the place of origin. And so GI products have a constitutive and identity-forming link with their origin. And the specificity of the products is related to natural factors or collective know-how. And all of these are embodied in technical specification. I go quickly. I can send my presentation if people want more details. The main objectives of GI are to protect the consumers against fraud. They buy these cashew nuts that they want to be from a specific origin. They will have these cashew nuts. As expected to protect producers. Also, so if I make specific efforts to produce Fukuok fish sauce, I don't want to be in competition with people who produce fish sauce that does not follow specifications and that make it look like Fukuok fish sauce. Also contribute to rural territorial development and preserve biodiversity, natural resources, and tradition. So, here are some GIs, bottom left, Champagne, Roquefort, Parmesan cheese, Darjeeling tea, and then going up is more Asian GIs. Not all concern food products. You have conical hats from Hue, Hom Mali from Thailand, Kampot pepper, Fukuok fish sauce, and Colombian coffee, which is not Asian, but I'll put it there. In Southeast Asia, Thailand has 99 geographical indications, Vietnam 63, Cambodia 3, and Laos 1. It's the sticky, small chick rice. The 16 and 6 is GIs from other countries that are registered in Thailand and Vietnam to be protected. Cognac, pisco, whiskey, things like that. Alcohol, and also Thai silk, I think. Okay. So, now we're going to look at control and certification that we have already started to look at with Chen, but we're going to de-zoom a little bit. So I'm going to go back to some basic stuff. If I want to have a yellow mango, it's easy for me because I'm going to use my eyes. So these are search attributes. If I want to have a mango that I can eat raw with chili or with sticky rice, I can't have the information when I look at it, but if I eat it and if I cook it and if I use it, I'll have experience about which varieties are good for which uses. Now there's a problem is that if I want to find an organic mango, fair trade, child-free, or a mango comes from this area that I will not try to pronounce, but seems to be famous, then how do I do? If I look at the mango, I can't know. Well, sometimes for varieties and maybe people who are really experts can know. But if I look at it, if I taste it, if I cook it, I'm going to have a problem. And so basically, we have a matching problem. There's a producer somewhere, for example, in Thailand, producing this rice. He has specific practices in producing a product with specific quality attributes. And he's in Vietnam, and he wants to make sure the consumer knows that his product has these specific qualities that are valued and for which he makes efforts. And at the other end of the chain, for example, in France, you have the consumer, he's willing to pay more to have these quality attributes. And he wants to make sure that as he is paying more, he gets them. If the producer and the consumer are next to each other, that's not a problem. I'm going to go see the producer and I see how he produces the mango. But the problem is that we have distance. And when we have distance, usually we have the question of certification. Meaning this is how it's solved in a traditional way. Then we have different types of certification. Somebody who is going to be between the producer and the consumer and makes sure that the information that is missing reaches. So certification here is a set of procedures that guarantee that a product complies with these standards and has the good quality attributes. It's not the standard. Many people think that certification is standard. It is not. We have different types of standards. First party is the farmer says himself that he's compliant. There's an issue of credibility. Second party certification is performed by a person or organization that has user interest. This could be with the cashew nut stakeholders, the users, doing the control. And third party certification is you have an independent entity that is independent from both the farmer and the consumer. And usually they are accredited, which is yet another stage. Accredited means that an external organization says that they can perform their controls because they have the qualifications, they are objective, there's no conflict of interest, they're independent. And third-party certification is considered as the gold standard, including for GIs, which was not initially the case. And when products go into the EU, so products that are from member countries need to have third-party certification, and imported products too, except in the case where there's a free trade agreement. It's not very clear to me exactly how that works. So we looked at GI control in Southeast Asian countries. So the first case is Cambodia. So as Chen was spoiling just before, the Cambodian system is adapted from the EU system, meaning that there are so there's a third-party certification body that controls the producer association, and the producer and association sets up the internal control system, and there's auto-control from the members. The thing is that in Cambodia, there is no accreditation body national and no third certification body that is accredited against ISO 1765, meaning that this is foreign and this is foreign. And so it's very costly for the producers to have this foreign certification of their products. In the case of Kampot pepper, it's EcoCert that performs the certification, and then there are internal inspectors at the GI Producer Association. So this is a system that's very quick and easy to put into place because you just get a certification body from outside. But the problem is it's very expensive and it doesn't allow much for learning of stakeholders. So this is what looks like a pack of pepper. You've got the GI logo, must be somewhere behind. Here you have the certification body. Here you have the organic logo because it was also organic. And this is the number of EcoCert that is accredited to certify organic in Cambodia. So this is just to show you the very close link in this Cambodian system between EU and Cambodian certification. But the local certification body, CORA, is not accredited and cannot perform these certifications. So it's really dependent on foreign institutions. Now, if you look at Thailand, it's very different. It's very flexible. There is no control mechanism required for GI, which sounds a bit surprising. However, if you want to use the Thai national logo, you have to have an operating manual and a control plan. And then you can use the logo. External control is optional, and it can be performed by a public body, a Thai body accredited against the Thai standard, or international body accredited against ISO 1765. So there are various options. There doesn't need to be, in some cases, a GI association. It can come later. Sometimes just we have users, the provincial authorities make the control plan and the operating manual, and they control directly. And sometimes the GI association comes a little bit later. This is interesting because it allows for actors to progressively build their capacity. If there is a GI association, then you can have either a provincial committee that verifies that the control plan is implemented and that people comply with the operating manual, and then you have internal control system and auto-control. And this looks more than like the Cambodian case, where you have accreditation body either national, ACFS, or foreign, and then The accredited certification body does the external control, and then there's internal control and self-control. So there's a variety of options, and it's much more flexible in the Thai case. Okay, Vietnam, I'm going to not stay too long on the Vietnamese case. I'm happy that we have the same conclusions. The GI controls are quite weak in the case of GI in Vietnam. There's no homogeneous system, and the right to use the GI does not depend on compliance with the GI specifications. There's no external inspections, as Chen just said. But there is the ICS, and also there is the auto-control. So in theory, there's some kind of auto-control by the DOST and STAMEC, and there's a special control comprising local authorities and qualified experts, but we don't really know who they are. And what is interesting is that none of the existing national certification bodies, like VINACERT, that is accredited to certify organic, actually inspect geographical indications. So it's interesting because they're completely separate. So here we have the case with national local authorities that own and manage the right to use the GI, and then this kind of external control with people from DOST, and a special control board with users, experts that we don't really know, well, can vary, the composition can vary, and then internal control and auto-control. So I looked for Shan Tuyet Thi, for example, in Mok Chau. The Son La Province Department of Standards and Technology, Science and Technology, own and register the GI, and then there's supervision by the DOST and STAMEC and qualified members. Okay, in the case of Laos, everything is very recent. The legal framework is very recent. There's a Laos certification body that works for organic agriculture but is not accredited internationally. And there's for international certifications, there's ACT. So everything is getting progressively into place for the Lao case. Conclusion and discussion. So, so we see here the difference. This summarizes the information that I just gave. What I think is that in the case of Thailand, it's quite flexible and cheap, and it allows a lot of learning, but it could be confusing and not always very credible. In the case of Vietnam, that means that there's a case of certification costs that are very low, but I'm not sure it's very credible, transparent, and Chen said that it was quite confusing. In the case of Cambodia, it's quickly operational, credible, but it's super expensive, and it raises tremendous barriers to entry for farmers, for different stakeholders and certification bodies. And finally, Laos, it's cheap. There could be economies of scale if the Laos certification body inspects at the same time organic and GIs. It could help strengthen its capacities. But for a moment, there's confusion and might be conflict of interest between the different ministries, as the Ministry of Agriculture performs certification and the Ministry of Science and Technology is in charge of certification. And there's no recognition. Almost done. Other models include collaborative model. I did a lot of interviews of certification bodies, and what happens, for example, for organic certification is one certification body says, I'll go to certify organic in Cambodia, and you go to Latin America. And so when I need products, when we need to have certification from this area, we go to you, and from this area, we go to you. Or some people will do organic and GAP, and the other one will be doing other kind of inspections. So the idea here and there was a platform called Certification Alliance, but it doesn't really work, I think, that gathers together certification bodies in Southeast Asia. And the idea was for a specialization of certification bodies based on either location of accreditation. So that's good because inspectors then have a critical mass of activity. The problem in Laos is that they don't perform enough inspections, so they get dequalified. Economies of scale for the farmer. You have one inspection and you have many certifications. But the problem is it's not very operational. And there's not many incentives for large control bodies to leave space to emerging ones. It's business. Other model is PGS, Participatory Guarantee System, more community-based. This lowers certification costs, but if you remember my graph with distance and producers and farmers, it's good for local systems, but for long-distance trade, I'm not sure that would work in terms of credibility. So in the end, I'm concluding there's many options for GI certification. For the EU market, it looks like this third-party certification is not always mandatory for third-party countries. And the different options that are chosen by the countries have to be considered, of course, in light of the cost, the level of education of producers, and also in the different ministries, domestic control capacities, and the market targeted, of course. Finally, just to go back to what Chen was saying, GRs are a bit equivalent to standards, but not quite. Each specification is really like a unique standard. And so the inspectors need to understand the history and the uniqueness of each DI. And also, they need to to make sure to choose the control points that really explain the specificity of the product. And finally, collective action is also, in my view, in our view, crucial element of the GI, not only in terms of application, but also organizing the internal control system. And this makes afterwards the external control very easy, and also make sure that all stakeholders learn from each other. So maybe the no GI association option of Thailand seems a bit weird to me. Done. Thank you.
So thank you for the very interesting presentation. I have a very short comment. This is a very informative paper, provide a detailed account of institutional and operational aspect of control and certification procedure for GI in 4 ASEAN countries. And some highlight in this research, because there is a complex issue, especially corresponding to the need of transparent, impartial, and balanced control system. And even in the case of France with INOW, they have already found the new solution to solve the problems of internet control. So for Vietnam and other Asian countries, I think because we are in different contexts, so in each country, we apply the EU model in different perspectives. And as in the paper show, the 3 options of GI control by accredited certification body, controlled by board or committee, controlled by participatory guarantee system or PGS. So for Vietnam, due to the issue of cost incurred in the first 2 options, so PGS is often preferred. But again, it should be noted that only in very limited number of GI in Vietnam have managed to bring together the voice of all stakeholders, for example, farmer, producer, or members. So problems of mutual trust and social system still persist, which may negatively interfere with the efficiency of GI control system. So after all, so the pathway of we choose GI control system must be clearly understood and agreed by all stakeholders. It means that each GI is used by all stakeholders in the region. Therefore, the issues of standard for GI control and certification should be a soft one. So I have a small question for the research team. So after the research of 4 case study in 4 countries, so which one you recommend for as a case study or the model for the Asia country? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Yeah, first of all, in the paper, there's also a reference to the French control, EU control system, but I didn't develop it. Yeah, I think that what you say is very true. I agree that it's very important that all stakeholders clearly understand and agree the challenges and the opportunities of the certification system. And this is clearly what the difficult part is. I would, to answer really straightforwardly your question, I think maybe distinguish between the market target, what you want, and then I would say that the Thai system, which is very flexible, is quite appealing because it's difficult, but at the same time, the Thai system with the GI association, because it looks like the GI association is really the backbone and it has to be very active. So I wouldn't take the option with no GI association and then progressively build the capacities, because all of this needs tremendous amounts of human capital to understand the whole structure of the certification process. Only the only rule of write what you say and say what you write for certification is already a tremendous barrier. We see, I didn't study this with the geographical indications, but organic, just reporting for farmers, reporting what they're doing, and following these specifications is very difficult. So having a system for maybe starting with local markets and PGS, and then moving towards a system where you have progressive certification internal at the country level. The advantage also of Thailand is that I think that in some cases, the certification body, like for the silk, the certification body is the Queen Sirikit Silk Institute, meaning that the institute that takes care of certification really knows well about silk. It's not an external certification body that certifies the same way silk, rice, cucumbers, and coffee. So I think a deep knowledge of how the value chain works, what are the important critical points, and what needs to be certified is something that is very essential. And a progressive moving from no certification to maybe participatory, because that allows all the value chain to understand better what goes on, but is not very credible. And then maybe external certification body, but is still national, but has proper knowledge, technical knowledge of what's going on. And then maybe moving towards third-party certification, that is quite interesting. The problem is that now markets, especially foreign markets, they just want third-party certification, and there's not much negotiation that can take place. In Laos, ACT, the Thai certification body that is ISO 1765, what they do, they come and certify organic, and they bring with at their inspections, they bring the inspectors, staff from the Laos certification body. So they train them. They say, okay, we have the accreditation, so we're going to do the certification, but you're going to come with us, and you're going to see how we inspect. And you're going to do the inspections with us so that, you can gain knowledge. So also collaboration between certification bodies is quite interesting, I think.
So this question really can be for both present. So it's about the cost of certification, and that same thing I have with the Viet Gap or Global Gap. And in your presentation, you have all these, cashew roasters and they package, and we assuming they're getting more money because they have GI logo on it, right? So do you think that, and then you're saying that still province have to pay for certification or for inspection process and keeping certification. So would it be that good indicator of how successful, how really beneficial using of GI logo is would be the willingness of people who benefit of it to pay for certification to go on?
Well, what happens also very often is that these certifications take place within development projects, and the first years of the project certification is paid by the project. And so everything is smooth and easy. And then when the project stops, then certification stops because it's quite expensive. And frankly, for example, okay, this is not GI, but this is organic rice in Laos. The number of certified farmers was really high at the moment of the project, and now it just fell because there's no market. Or people don't buy organic rice because they have other proxies for organic rice. They don't need certification, or they have rice from their networks of families and friends, and they just buy bulk. So nobody buys, and nobody buys, then why would I bother doing things in a special way, having inspectors in my hair all the time and paying a huge sum of money to get certification? So yes, that's absolutely the case. That it would be, and yes, I agree.
As for the case in Big Cashew Nut, actually in the beginning, the budget for the control team is still funded by the people committee, so it is free at the moment. But in our design and in the near future, we are expected to help them to design a system that can daily or provide stamp, and then they can the association can earn some money from stamp and have some kind of money, and then use those money to pay for the inspection activities. So that's in the future, but at the moment it's not.
Thanks a lot. My name is Tan. I'm from ICRAP, Vietnam. I have two questions to Isabel, and thanks a lot for the presentation. My first question is back to the title. So it's one size fits all, or is it going to be a tailor-made one? So what's your recommendation out of the research of the study? So that's the first question. The second question is about, safeguard. If we are talking about geographical indication, to what extent GI is going to address the issues of safeguard both in terms of environment and in terms of social? Is it going to protect the environment? Is that not promoting any production that affect the environment, and also not to so to say, advantage the people who are already disadvantaged in the society? Thank you.
Actually, this article is not normative. The aim was not to say this is the best solution or this is the best solution. What we see is that there are market pushes for one size fits all. That would be third-party certification. But then in practice, it's more like tailor-made stuff. And again, depending on what market you're targeting, for local markets, PGS could be very good because it allows learning, it allows sharing, it allows to have cheaper certification, but in many places it's not going to be accepted. So I would okay, I'll answer the question. It's tailor-made for the moment. And I think it has to be this way, to allow space for everybody. If we want it to be inclusive, I think it has to be tailor-made. And then different market segments, different specificity of the products, then you can adapt. Second question. Okay, so contrary to organic or fair trade, GI specifications are not explicitly targeted towards environmental protection or social inclusion, but in the technical specifications that go with each GI product, there can be provisions, for example, in how you're going to be using water, or how you're going to be growing your coffee. If, for example, the very specific taste of your coffee comes from the fact that it's shade-grown, then you're going to have it in the specification. Or if, but the main objective of the GI is not to promote fair trade, or to promote organic, for example. But you can have some, you may have, and if you're clever and if you want to preserve this comparative advantage that is built on a specific environment, natural resources, know-how, then probably you have an interest of taking into account these environmental and social factors. But I'm not going, I can't say that they're going to be very prominent in all of the GI specifications. But there are other experts in the room. Because I'm not a GI expert. Maybe you found out that I'm more a certification expert. But maybe if somebody wants to add on to the discussion, I would be happy.
Defining sustainability, but what happens is that in many situations where you see GIs developing and reputation developing for products, it is based on the specificity of the natural resources and the human resources and the collective underpinnings in the area. And this specificity generally built on marginal areas or specific factors that are very much tied to the area, that are strong connection with the environment, on strong social cohesion that have created this know-how. So though per se GIS is not protecting environment for itself or social elements by itself, because of what Isabel was saying, that if you want to protect the reputation of the specificity on which your product is being built, then you will protect these resources which can be human and natural. And these resources are likely to be very much tied to your environment and to your social cohesiveness. So that's how GIS has been more and more often related to sustainability. And also I think because in the different regions of the world, there is this things of the different categories between organic, etc., etc. The institutions which are managing these different types of qualities are trying to more specifically organize these things. And like in France, for example, the institution in charge of geographical indication is now the same as the one for organic. So they are creating a kind of rational which is consistent across the different types of, what do you call that, standards. Yeah. And having in mind that, yeah, you want to say something about it? And then I wanted to make a short comment. No, please go.
Just I have an example. In Laos, there's this applicant for a geographical indication that is the Boloven Plateau coffee, so upland coffee. And in the upland area that produces Boloven coffee, you have smallholder farmers and large industrial estates. And so the question for the stakeholders is, should we go for just ordinary technical specification and then everybody, okay, so GIs cannot exclude. Everybody that's going to be in the area of the plateau, make coffee according to the specification can have the GI. And so just to make the GI a little bit more restrictive and focusing on smallholder farmers, they're thinking of having an organic requirement inside the geographical indication, which would de facto kind of exclude large estates that make coffee in an industrial way. So organic might also be kind of an instrument to try to focus on smallholder farming.
So that people can be aware when they buy a GI, they not only buy a product, they buy everything around, the environment, the social network, and so on.
Thank you for all the presentations. My name's Tuyen. I'm the country coordinator of agriculture for nutrition and health program in Vietnam. And many thanks for different presentation, but I would love to see the first time we look at the food system, especially in urban. And this morning we also have different presentation, but I feel like we just map mainly on the food environment element inside the food system framework. But I also learned from your research that after you finish the research, you have the tool, you have the product, but it's very hard for you after the finishing the projects. I feel like we still lack of a look at attention that we need also to add the research inside the demand side. I mean like the target end user, that can be the consumer, that we talk about food system. So we cannot only do in food environment, because we need to look at the accessibility from the consumer, from the user, and also affordability from them. So I think I hope that when we talk about food system research, so not only is based on for the production side or for on the retail side, but also for consumer or the end user by themselves. So we target not only availability of the tools, but also accessibility of the end user and the affordability on the price, etc., so that we can have more sustainability after the ending of the project. That's the lesson I learned from different presentation this morning. Yeah, thank you.
On geographical indication and sustainability, also another point which is often being made on GIs is that these are standards which are locally built. They are defined with the people who are using them. So that's a reason why they are often claimed to be more inclusive than other standards, which are more externally designed.
I'm Chien from Bạc Thom. I just have two comments. First is about what we are talking, just the last two presentations about the GI. That I also have an opportunity to work quite a lot with GI products. And I found that for the last 10 years, we did quite a lot of GIs. And as you mentioned, we have more than 60 GI products now. But, you know, honestly, we have, at the moment, we have almost no GI product that could sit in the market well, you know, from the long time, from like a persimmon in Bắc Cạn, Tám Xoan, Hải Hậu, rice, banana, Đại Hoàng. We spend a lot of years and with a lot of energy over there, but you know, no earning. So I think, as last presentation, I think there are 2 points that we have not reached to the market. First is about the control, the procedure, or what you said about the control point, the control points. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, that we have not delivered that message. We fail to deliver the message to the consumers, to the market. You know, so as Chien's presentation, I don't think your project with that will succeed because we don't deliver the message to the market. You know, so if the province buy that, you know, and all the control system belong to the internal inspection and no link to the market, it's not working, you know, that one. And the second is about internal inspection. Particularly, we are talking about PGS. I'm also working with PGS for the last 10 years. And we found that, yeah, the message of PGS is what we cross-checking, you know, cross-inspection. But actually, it does not work, particularly for at the peer-to-peer. You know, so farmer to farmers checking, cross-checking between farmers is not working. For the last 10 years, we have found no penalty found by farmers. So all penalties, all falls at the farm levels or at the business level, mainly by the buyers. Yeah. For example, at farm levels, mainly 95% by found by buyers, and 5% by the what we call the coordination board, that by independent people. So I think for the GI we are talking, we should be very clear about this. So first about internal inspection, and second is to link what we are doing here, control points to the market. Otherwise, I don't think the project will be survived. Yes, thank you.
Yes, maybe it's, I have a, actually it's not comment or just ask for discussion here, but I think that's for, to be honest, I'm not specialized in GI, but I specialize in marketing research. So from that perspective, I recognize that for GI is very, very important, because in terms of competitive advantage, GI can create that unique product. I mean, that's for the one product they can compete in the market. They have two main factors. That is the price and unique product. So that's why, in case we have a certificate like GI, it means that we can have a product that we cannot find it in another market. So in this case, the product can create advantage in the markets, and I think that's it's a very, very special, and it's very important for our agriculture product. So it's better. I think that's we can continue to promote it, and we can develop agriculture sector here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you for the comments. You can get the one. And we start again, we resume at 1:30.